I have a cat behind me, so he may jump up.
Oh, that's
we got the dogs out in the office here just.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we have two big boys. Yeah, but they're being a little whiny today. So
well, they'll come in and lay down. I'll let them come lay down.
Okay, perfect.
Well, my son and I went to Toronto for March break because Quebec's March break is the first week of March, and our cat stayed here with my partner. And when I got back, he was like clinging to me. And then this morning, my son was getting ready to go for school, and the cat was freaking out. He was jumped up on this post, and the stair post, a very narrow stair post, and was reaching up with his hands to be held. And yeah, they're wild. Animals, pets are wild.
Yeah, in the before times, pre-COVID, I was very active socially, going to shows, obviously for music, but also going out to art galleries. I worked for a short period of time at an art gallery here in town, so I got very entrenched with that community. So I was just never home. And then March last year hit, and all I could think of was, why didn't I buy a cat? You silly human, you should have bought a cat. But on the other hand, I knew that once things went slightly back to normal, the separation anxiety, not just on the cat's part, but on my part, would just be through the roof.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The first time I went away after being here for 6 weeks, 2 months solid, really, because I had a friend, he's a theater writer for the Globe and Mail, Kelly Nestruck. And he was mid-renovation when COVID hit. And he had rented somebody else's house, and they were in LA doing a film shoot. And of course, COVID meant they had to come back, and he had nowhere to go. So he stayed in my house in Toronto for a month. So I wasn't in Toronto for 2 months. And when I went back, my cat had not been used to me being gone. And he got really sick. I had to take him to a vet. He was like peeing all over the place. And she said, it's stress. It's stress. A lot of animals are having stress around COVID, either having their parents home all the time or being separated from extended families. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I live in an apartment building, so I have tons of neighbors with pets, and it was hilarious because, normally when you're getting ready in the morning, you hear 1 or 2 dogs barking as the owners are leaving and whatnot, which is totally normal. I don't care. But it was strange because there was like a solid month, 2 months where it never came. I kept waiting while I was like, making my coffee in the morning because I'm super pretentious. I've got the whole Chemex set up where the gooseneck and everything. And I was just like,
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like it's called a gooseneck stemmed kettle. Sorry, all I could think was.
Oh, okay. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know that. I know.
No.
I started singing, I was singing from the age of 15, so, and no one ever believes me. I've never been drunk. The taste of alcohol burns my throat. I don't drink coffee. I live on, water with lemon and milk.
Yeah, I have a friend, it's a friend of mine's partner, who I'm also friends with, it's just that's how we know each other, who is I believe a tenor in classical opera. And same. I think I've seen him drink wine once. Yeah. And it was like a singular glass, like 6 years ago kind of situation.
Oh yeah. Yeah, singers can't drink beer. That's the big one. The yeast and the sugar content, and singers can't drink beer. I just never had a taste for it personally. I just couldn't. My sister said, you have to get used to it. And I was like, why? And because I had no friends in high school, I was never at a risk for peer pressure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't have my first taste of alcohol till university. I was technically underage, but we don't talk about it.
Not in Europe.
No, exactly. Well, technically I wouldn't have been underage if I had gone to Quebec, but because I had such a young birthday, I was 17 for, I think, 2 weeks or so of university, but that was so many years ago. I don't think the police are going to come after me. But yeah, no. I didn't have many friends in high school either, so I never got to go to alcohol parties. We went bowling, and there was 4 of us, and it was exciting.
Yes. They used to have Gilbert Field parties when I was in high school. This guy, named Dave Gilbert. He used to have Gilbert field parties, and he was the nicest guy. He was a real, he was a party guy, but he was really nice to me. And he invited me to a couple, and I just never had the nerve to go because I was worried about safety and things like that. Yeah, it's a thing you miss out on. I missed out on university. I've actually just started an undergrad in psychology, and I never went to university. I didn't graduate high school. I got my degree. I got my credits by doing night school and correspondence courses back in the 90s, early 90s, and so it's an interesting perspective to be in classes with people that are in their teens and 20s, and they're planning, I can't do this assignment, I can't meet, because I have a party that night, or I've got, and I think, oh, right, like this is what university is. That's part of it, right? Like it's part of the university experience.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, it's an interesting thing that you bring up, just to go back to our point about, not drinking in high school and the party scene is, as queer people, we miss out on a lot of roadblocks.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I mean, I am a cisgendered male, so I don't go through a lot of things that like the trans community goes through. But it's something I've been explaining to my friends now in our early 30s, which I think is monumental. And I'm like, you don't understand. We didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do this. I didn't hit this milestone until I was 21 or whatever.
We didn't date.
We didn't date. No.
We didn't talk about who we liked in school.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's huge. Learning how to socialize with your friends as you figure out what your feelings are towards people of the opposite sex, the same sex, all those kind of things. That's all part of high school. Learning how to, and even elementary school, learning how to articulate those sort of feelings, and that's what we become, asexual. We become agender or closeted, one or the other, and we do miss those sort of milestones. In a way, I think it saved me because I was in not a great situation at home, and I think it would have been very easy for me to fall into identifying with a group of friends who were really strong and who were maybe out of control, that kind of thing. I think I would have fallen into that. I think there would have been a chance of me falling into that when I was that age. So I was probably saved in a way by it. I was saved by living in my car. I was, very self-destructive prior to that, and I was asked to leave the home. And, my friends were all horrified and shocked. And I was thrilled. I was scared, but I was thrilled because I was safe. I was in the backseat of my car. My grandfather had bought me this old Ford Fairmont, and I was safe. And I think a lot of us, people will say, "Oh, what a terrible story." I'm like, my story's mild. Like, like
it's
it is in no
true.
way unusual. It is in no way unusual, certainly for my age group. But it was really, the things that were awful, missing out on high school stuff and missing out on university. I got a lot from that anyways. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting how we as like the queer community have we went through two different paths in the woods. I'm thinking just explicitly, we lost a generation of storytellers with the AIDS epidemic here in Canada. I mean, internationally, but specifically here in Canada. And now it's kind of reconvened with social media, with people of all generations being able to finally interact, which I think is just so beautiful that we're able to realize and come together through all this same lived experiences, despite being 10, 20, 40 years separate, and to kind of commiserate and work through those lost memories.
Yeah. And also I find it wonderful to see, my niece, she just turned 18 yesterday. I went to her grade 8 graduation. There were 3 trans people in her class. And I was like, I was just thrilled. I was thrilled. there was a couple of gay people, gay and lesbian people in hers, and a couple of bisexual people in her class. And I was absolutely thrilled. But you know, there is that part of me, my dearly departed friend, Lori Noble, wonderful photographer in Toronto. She used to look at what she called the baby dykes, and she'd say, why are they so happy?
Oh, there's 100% a small twinge of jealousy that runs through looking at the younger generation. As the only out gay person, there was myself and one lesbian girl in our high school I think our high school is 1,500 people or so. So by no means a small school. And there was
Yeah.
2 of us. And there is that little bit of twinge of jealousy when I see, the youth on social media who are, in their late teens, early 20s. And it's just like, wait, you've had how many exes? Unacceptable.
I know. It's amazing. I mean, Lori was wonderful. I remember her just being fascinated by this and just like, why would they be so cheerful? Like, what could have happened to their lives? And I said, well, I think they had just sort of more normalized being, our lives were more normalized by that point. Experiences growing up, and she was just, I remember her saying, God, what would that have been like? And I thought, I don't know. I cannot imagine it. I am so used to being the other, in my son's school, in our community here, not in Toronto, but I'm so used to being the other that you just don't, from our whole, I mean, you probably feel the same. It's just de rigueur, it's the way things are.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't until probably my late 20s when I started to really unpack a lot, where I had put up a lot of, those defensive walls of, well, it's because of this. And I weirdly enough had a guy who used to bully me. Well, he didn't bully me, but he was bully adjacent. He was friends with people in high school, reach out to me to, his daughter was, I think, 6 or 7 at the time, and she had experienced her first bout of bullying. And he had reached out to me because he was like, oh, I just realized what a terrible person I was to you.
Oh, wow.
And it was mind-blowing because, first of all, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I was like, what is happening? This is not how I thought my Saturday was going to start. But it also helped me unpack a lot of, I had been so defensive and stopped myself from having certain friendships or even standing up for myself, both out of fear as well as victimizing myself. It's interesting the things we go through. You had mentioned being othered and being alone. I'm curious what it's been like for you as a parent raising a child during COVID. I mean,
the thing is that the 3 of us, we're the 3 musketeers. We're Huey, Dewey, and Louie. We're the Ronettes. We're not very social, and I think part of that is people are very friendly, but we're not included in things in the same degree as someone who has lived in the area for their lives, and their parents are from here. So, and then we're an LGBT couple, and our child is adopted, and he's a person of color, and there's so many others in there that I think it's just, we're used to just being the 3 of us. And we see, he has play dates, and he sees my partner has family in the area. So he sees other people, and he has lots of friends at school. He's quite popular. But it wasn't substantially different. In some ways it was quite beautiful. I actually look back on those 2 months of, the March, April into May. They were pretty amazing. It was an amazing period. I realize everyone has their own story about it, but for me, it was a really positive experience being cocooned like that, right? Both with writing the album, but also just as a family, it was a really positive experience. There were certainly challenges, but I learned more about myself as a parent. I think I became a little less hard on myself as a parent, and I think I became a little less expectant of what I wanted to be, was, yeah, that was, but I'll never be able to homeschool. Like that ship sailed, it sank, it was recovered later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a close friend her daughter is, I believe, 10. She might have just turned 11 recently. I know she had a birthday towards the end of 2020, and she said the same thing. She was like, homeschooling is terrible. This is not for everyone. She's like, now I understand why people go to school to be teachers. It is a vocation, it is a calling, and it is not for me.
Yeah. And the fact that, one of the things I also realized that there are good teachers and bad teachers. And, my son has been blessed with mostly good teachers. And I appreciate them so much more, particularly when it came to here in Quebec, in, I think it was May, or April or May, I can't remember, it's all a blur, when they started providing online content. And my son's homeroom teacher had no idea how Google Classrooms worked. So she taught herself.
Wow.
And presented content. And it was all over the place. It was hard to figure out sometimes. And she was patient. She'd walk us all through it, like, oh, it's over here. And I didn't know how to do that, so it's over here. The fact that she just did that was insanely inspiring to me. I thought she's just the best, and the other teachers at the school, now the teaching team they have there are just, I know they all did the same for their classrooms. It's a vocation, but it's also a calling for sure. And you see it in their faces, you see that they actually like the children. And when you see ones that don't like the children, they don't last long,
Yeah.
They sort of go away.
It's interesting you talk about like the resiliency and the dedication that goes into the teaching, and it's the same kind of situation with the work that you put into this album. There was the resiliency of you as a family, you as a parent, dealing with the loss of this the mother in your life. It's fascinating how it's so cliche, life imitates art, but it really truly does. And I mean, even the songs that I'm just thinking of the two covers off the top of my head, just because I'll be honest, I knew them going into listening.
Yeah.
So, were there specific reasons in the sense that these songs had meaning to you, or was it whether it can be fond memories or not?
These are songs that I've been singing for a long time. I've been doing them in gigs. And the reason I was singing them is, there was this thing that Whoopi Goldberg said, like, a long time ago. I think it was probably in the 80s or the 90s. It was a very long time ago. And she said that she wanted her performances to be like the moment that Judy Garland was on stage in the double album of Live at Carnegie Hall. And she's singing Come Rain or Come Shine. And at the very end, she's so emotional that her voice just goes, like it just hollers, and you can see she's lost control, and it's a very powerful moment. And she said, that's what I want my performance to be like. My performance is to be like, I want it to be like that. And so for me, I was like, yeah, that moment where you're in control, but almost not in control, where emotion is overtaking you. And so I thought, if I put a spell on you, because classically that is a gut-wrenching song to sing, because it is about obsession and loss and longing and lust and all these sort of things. And I really wanted to sing that because I wanted to have that moment on the album where you're just out of control, where your emotions are out of control. They're just exuberant and positive and negative and all those sort of things. Because it's very freeing as a singer to do that. Cry Me a River, I wanted to sing because I heard this arrangement in my head and I really wanted to do it. And I love it because it's the Screw You song, it's this sort of, it's the greatest song, Cry Me a River. I cry a river over you. Now it's your turn to cry a river over me. I just love that idea. Julie London's version is my favorite. which was simple and intimate and gorgeous. And Take on Me was, I just always heard it as a Torch song, you know, when I love that song. I grew up with it, and I was like, as I became older, and as you could Google lyrics, you know, as of the early noughties and the late 90s, when you can actually find out what these people are saying in these pop songs because of the production values, it was hard to tell sometimes. And I was like, oh my Lord, this song is so sad and so beautiful and longing. It's a sense of real longing. And so I thought, I want to do this as a slow song one day. And it took me a long time. And then I took it to, I was working with a wonderful pianist in Quebec City, Felix Dubé. And I said, I want it like this. And I played it for him, and he played it almost exactly the same. And then Clement did the same thing. I sent him the arrangement that I wanted, and he did the same thing. And yeah, I love we weren't supposed to release that as the first song, but I did this video for it, and the video was getting views on YouTube, and it was starting to get circulated around the world. And I thought, like, we're at 45 or 46,000 views now. That's not a lot for a successful artist, but for someone like me, it's huge. 46,000 views. And so we released it as a single because of that, and because it's a beautiful, sad sort of song. But all of the ones I chose, yeah, they were all, and the ones that I let go of, I know I'll come back to one day. I had to make room for the songs I wrote while I was arranging. I'd originally only planned to include 2 original songs, and neither of those made it on the album. So, yeah.
But at least you have them in your back pocket for later.
Oh yeah. Well, those ones, yeah, I think their time has come and gone. Those ones, I liked those ones, but the covers that I wanted to do, those ones definitely I'll revisit them at some point. I want to go back in the studio and do an EP. There's an amazing songwriter and singer and pianist in Toronto named Sista Lois, and Sista Lois is a spoken art, singing, poetic marvel. And she wrote a beautiful song called June. And I will record that song with her next. That's my vow. It's the most amazing piece. But if you ever want to Google her, she's just amazing. She's incredible.
I plan on it. Several years ago, Ottawa had a spoken word festival. It was very small. I think there was only about 50 of us that went to it, but it's not a genre that gets a lot of attention, and especially in mainstream media, because it is very difficult to share. It's a very intimate. I mean, same with jazz, which is very intimate as well. It's some things you do need to see live, or at least have a video component too. But I feel like spoken word's different. You had also mentioned, you had songs for your son and songs about your mother. What are some of the other works that have gone into this album?
That I wrote? There's a piece called Zephyr that I wrote for a concept album. Like the month after my son arrived, I was asked by James B to create a song that was sort of about some kind of mythology, and I chose the story of Zephyr, and I did it as a waltz, but a really creepy sort of Tom Waits waltz. And the project never came to fruition, but I kept the song because I really liked it. I loved the concept of Zephyr being this god or demigod that, and I didn't know the story prior to this. Well, I learned it shortly before writing the song, so it was hand in hand with that, who fell in love with a boy and a young man, and Apollo came along with his brilliance and his light and warmth and stole the boy, the young man's heart. And so Zephyr followed them, watching, and I just thought that was so lovely, the idea of that. Of this sort of, that he followed him, this invisible wind just sort of following this young man around because he adored him so. I thought that was really pretty and really cool, and so I wrote Zephyr for that. And I can't even remember the other song I wrote. Isn't that terrible? Unravel, Zephyr. Oh, my douchebag song. I'm not supposed to say douchebag, I'm supposed to say dirtbag. My dirtbag song, which is I Couldn't Be Your Girl. And that is, the people that sort of go through elementary school and high school and university, and it just sails through, right? Like they're just, everyone likes them, they're popular, everything works out for them. And we all know this guys that are like cock of the walk, right? You know, they just think they're everything. And this idea, how we raise children, especially how we raise our sons, which is, you know, the opening line is, your mother always told you, it's a line that they sold you. You'll break a lot of hearts one day. And it came from my child being in daycare. And one of the daycare mothers referred to the other boy who was 3 years old. He played, it was mostly girls in the daycare. And he was like, oh, there he is with his harem. And I thought, oh, yuck. You know, and they talked about this a lot, how he was a lady killer, and, you know, and I just sat there and I thought, he's 3. You know, and it was part of their creation story for him. So he had that, you know, harem, all these girls chasing after you, all those girls want you. And I thought, that's really common, you know. I've seen it a lot with children. And the second verse is the message that so many daughters are given, which is, you know, find a good guy, you know, don't kick up a fuss, let him make the rules, follow them as best as you can. And I thought, yeah, like we're still hearing that, you know, I'm still seeing that in schools sometimes with parents, with children sort of sorting themselves out. I'm very lucky that teachers in my son's school are very proactive about equality and fostering that kind of space for them. But you do see parents doing it. It's really disturbing to me. That sort of pairing, you know, toddlers off. It's just, one of them said, oh, look, your son's got a girlfriend. I said, no, they're friends. He's 3. You know? And she said, oh, you just want him to be gay. And I said, he's 3.
Reminds me of the little like baby onesies where it says like lady killer on the boys onesie and then just says princess on the girls, and you're like,
I know.
They're still drooling on themselves.
It's prevalent. And God, you know, I feel for the guys that are raised this way because they are programmed. You know, girls are given, I think, a little bit more leeway in their programming. You could be a tomboy, or you could be a princess, or you could be the smart girl. Boys are like, you know, toughen up and straighten up and fly right. And, you know.
Yeah. Boys, we get being the nerd, or we get to be the jock.
Yeah, yeah.
If we're lucky, you get to be a class clown, and that's about it. I'm curious, you had mentioned that the Take On Me wasn't the planned flagship for this album.
No.
What was the plan for the single, like the big release single to be?
We were thinking, originally I was thinking I Put a Spell on You. My producer, John O'Grant, was like, you should release that one. He liked it. And I thought, yeah, I could do that. So we were all set. We had it uploaded to the label, to the distributor. You have to do all this stuff on a record label. You have to upload all these things to the distributor, and the distributor has to have all the material, and they send it out to radios and to digital providers like Apple Music and iTunes and all that kind of Napster and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. And we had it all set to go, but then Take On Me, I stuck it up on December 5th or something like that, and it just started getting more and more views. And when I hit 500, I was like, maybe I should do this as a single. And I talked to the publicist, Carrie Malik, and she was like, yeah, for sure. And my record label guy was like, oh, let's release that. You've got a video for it, and it's doing well. And I remember when I was thrilled when it hit 1,000, and then I was thrilled when it hit 5,000, then 10,000. And it was just crazy. But it's such a popular song that it comes up in anyways, so I think people just check it out. I don't know. We have a lot of, you can see your graphics and how long people's watched the video, and it's pretty good actually. So, but yeah, it was a surprise. I just figure, you know, I create this album, I work really hard on it. I worked really hard and loved every moment of it. Really and truly loved every moment of it. And now it's on its own. and it's got to make its way, and I'll do whatever I can to support it and to sort of ease its passing. But you know, it has to make its own little way. So I don't think too much about it. You know, we thought about Mom because it was similar to Take on Me, in that it was piano and voice, but also some strings. But also, it's just a really, I thought it was a pretty song, and Take on Me was more guttural, and I didn't want to follow up. Or sorry, I put a spell on you was more guttural. I didn't want to follow up Take on Me with something that was quite so raucous. So yeah, I think after that, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have no idea because it's original. I don't know what'll happen. But we charted for the first time. We charted at number 7 or number 9. I can't remember which, on a radio station, jazz station. And I'm right behind Brandy Disterheft, who played on my first album. Is a wonderful bass player, and she premiered her album too. So it was really cool to sort of see her name and mine there. I like that. She premiered ahead of me, though. I should make it clear.
give the dues where they are due. Yeah.
But she's frankly more talented than I am. So.
I don't know, with 4 albums under your belt lasting, 15, 16 years, whatever it was we had agreed on, there is something to say about the longevity and quality of the work. I am curious, you just in general, you as an artist, you put so much work and effort and blood, sweat, tears, and time into these albums, and then just to release it, it must be very both freeing and scary, for lack of a better word, to just now it's on its own and to see how people react to it. I mean, you are creating something out of nothing. It's interesting just how you as an artist deal with that anxiety of will they, won't they like it.
I grew up with an older sister, and I never won a game in my entire childhood, like Monopoly, Clue, Sorry, Crazy Outs, Rum. I never won a game, and our mother was super competitive, so it was like there was no letting you win. I've grown up with this sense of how to be a gracious loser. Part of that is not being obsessed with the idea of winning. And I don't have that feeling ever. I don't actually feel any anxiety about the album. I assume everything I do is done. Like I've done it. If it has a further life, I don't know if I assume everything I do will be a failure. I don't think I do that, but I just assume that it's done, and I've done what I can. I've done my best, and out it is. I didn't feel any anxiety. I felt kind of really happy about it. I always see my albums as being little people, or little creations out sort of bopping along, doing what they can. And all of them have had this, there's so many times where I thought my work was over. My work as a singer, my life as a singer and as a performer was over. After the first album, I thought it was over. The second album, I sank like a stone. And I thought, oh, well, that's that then. And then Reader's Digest bought the single, bought one of the songs, my version of Gene Pitney's I'm Gonna Be Strong, and put it on a worldwide CD collection. And then Love's Worst Crime was in the States and charted, got up to number 2 nationwide on community jazz charts and on Earshot, which is the sort of amalgamation of these charts. And they've all had their own little things. So I don't know. It's all a bonus. Once it's done, it's all a bonus, anything that happens. But I thought I was done. I was having a hard time getting gigs because I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I was singing just primarily in Quebec City, and so yeah, I just assume that that's, you do what you do, and then it's done, and then you just sort of do something else and see what comes of it. I don't know. It's a strange sort of phenomenon, but I don't feel any nervousness about it. No.
I find it very intriguing, just and rightfully so, you should feel proud of it. The humility that comes with, and the humbleness that comes with being a seasoned performer versus the kind of hustle culture that a lot of the younger performers that we work with, what they go through. And it's interesting that by almost having no expectations for your own work, that it almost, because you're going in at such a zero level expectation, no matter what you do is a success in and of itself. And for the
That's
record,
a good way of putting it. Zero level of that. That's it. I'm not a pessimist, but that's it. Zero level of expectation. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, your second album wasn't that poorly received. That was the, what was it, 2 a.m.?
That was my first. 2 a.m. with the Torch
Oh,
Cafe
2
was
a.m.
my
was your
first.
first. Yes.
No, I got some good reviews. I got airplay, and it was lovely. You know, and I got press around it, and the National Post did a big double-page spread, and you know, I got stuff out of it. I got gigs out of it. The second album, I don't know. It just wasn't. I don't know. I'm really pleased with the second album, but it was a bit too long, and it, you know, but something good came out of that. And then the third album, some good things came out of that, and you know, it's always exciting to hear your song played. When I first heard that CBC added me to the playlist, I was waking myself up if it was early or staying up late at night to hear it. And it's been played many times now, so I don't do it now. But over the first week, I really like hearing it on the radio. That's a big deal, you know, and for me, that's a big deal. That was really cool. And I was interviewed this week by Global TV in Regina. And
Wow.
but yeah, no, I don't. Expectations, you know, they nail you to the ground in all sorts of ways.
Well, there's a reason why the expression "we are our own worst critic" exists. Is
Yeah,
we're harshest to ourselves and knock ourselves down with insecurities. So
yeah, I'm not a perfectionist. Someone said that to me once. Oh, you're a real perfectionist with your singing. I was like, no. I'm like, there's an expression, an Irish expression, the man on the galloping horse. And that's my view of life, which is as the man on the horse gallops by, whatever sort of loose details you remember, that's what sticks. So it doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to notice the embroidery on the saddlebag, you know, you know, and so I'm very much that, you know, yeah.
So I know you've been doing, like, as you just mentioned, some small press for the release of Unravel. Is it weird not having the standard kind of fanfare of doing a live show, having all kinds of friends and business associates and whatever your terminology is for them? Everyone has different loving terms that they use. Is it weird kind of releasing this album and then just that's it? It's just you click send.
Yeah, hugely weird. I love doing, I always get, that's what makes me nervous. Having to fill a room makes me very nervous. But, you know, it's kind of easier when it's an album launch, and um, that would have made me nervous. But, you know, not singing it live was really strange. Like not getting together with musicians and actually singing it live and celebrating it. I always think of the launch as paying tribute to the way the songs evolved on their own and with the other musicians. Because I don't map out solos. I give them a loose idea of what I'm looking for. But, you know, Chris Plock on the album, he was with Jeff Healey's Jazz Wizards, and he's amazing. He sings with me on Blue Skies. And he plays saxophone and flute and clarinet and sousaphone and just everything you can imagine. And, you know, watching them create their solos, you know, the song isn't mine anymore, it's ours. And so, you know, it's kind of any success that happens with it is sort of like you realize it's not just yours. It's, you know, if someone's listening to the song, it's because everyone involved in it did a really good job. Clement played the piano and Take on Me, and he did a gorgeous job. It's every bit as much his song as mine. So.
No, it seems like you have a really strong relationship with everyone that worked on this album.
I wanted to work with people I loved. Clement is new to my life. I've only known him for 2 years, but he's wonderful. He has a joy for music. He teaches at the university in Quebec City. He has a joy for music that is just absolutely infectious. He loves playing. He loves listening to other players. He had the best time recording. And the other people, George is like our spiritual guy. He's the George Kohler on bass. And it's like, I love that. I love that he's there to sort of ground us but also sort of let us open up. And then Great Bob is our humor guy, but he's also our, let's get this done guy. He keeps everybody, he's the drummer, but he keeps everybody on task. And it's amazing. And he's lovable and kind. But he'll be like, okay, let's go. And Plock is like, he is the perfectionist. Chris Plock is the perfectionist, definitely. He's like, but he nails it every time. Our edits were so easy for the album with the engineer and the producer. It was so easy. We don't do corrections for them. We do corrections for me. We don't do corrections for them. It was just, yeah. Every song was like 3 takes.
On that same vein of it being so different, just sending things off and without the fanfare, I'm curious, how has recording and creating these albums gone from when you first started till now? I mean, there's a huge change in technology for starters, but also, the confidence that you bring to the table when going into a recording studio, the different levels of relationships that you have with people. How has that changed from when you first started till now?
I'm way more confident than I was. I'm not overbearing about it. I'd like to think I'm not, but I used to be very passive about it. I remember when I recorded my first album, Tony Corrington, who's an amazing guitarist, who did several of the arrangements for that album, for the first 3 albums I did. He did many arrangements for them, and he's won a Juno. His brother was Paul Corrington, whale music, and I said to him, I'm just really intimidated, and he said, yeah, you got to get over that. And I thought, okay. And it took me 3 albums to get over that. I started with the 3rd album 10 years ago. I wrote a piece, and I was like, oh, there's this line I want to go, the bass line, and George was like, play it for me. And that was the first time I've actually played something for somebody that I wanted them to replicate on their instrument. Now I don't feel that worry at all. I actually played the piano for the first time on the album. I played the piano for Mom. Because I thought it was going to take all day to record it, because I got very emotional when I was doing it. And it didn't. We did it in 2 takes. but I'm way less. And, telling the engineer, I worked with Aaron Fund Salem. He was the engineer for the project at Number 9. And I loved it because I have a very strong voice. I'm a belty kind of singer sometimes. And in the past, I've kind of been like, oh, my voice sounds squished, and and I realized that we were engineering it as a jazz album. Aaron comes from a background of he's recorded all sorts of music, but he came from hard rock, screaming, Twisted Sister stuff, and I was like, that's perfect because I've got a really loud voice. And he handled it like a champ. Like, he didn't use compression on me. You often have to use compression for dynamic voices. Kind of squishes down the sound, but it kind of takes away the power, the live power of it. And I wanted this to sound like a live album, like we were on a stage singing and performing. And he was amazing. So much more confident because I knew what I wanted. And I was able to voice that early on rather than kind of hint at it and things like that. So yeah, I love making albums. It's a wonderful process.
Nice. Well, that actually kind of leads into one of my last couple talking points. I know it's heading into dinner time for you as a parent, so I don't want to cut in too deep.
No, I'm loving this.
I'll be very honest. I've absolutely adored chatting with you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. I have too.
So one of the last couple of questions I wanted to know was, what do you think it is about jazz that has endured this long and will continue? What do you think is going to allow it to continue as we go further on?
It's very true music. It's not predictable. It's true music. You can. I mean, you can get a young girl and put her in a black dress and some heels and big hair and tell her to sing something with a lot of vibrato. And that happens. There are people that do that. But there is truth to the songs. And there's so much improvisation, musically and vocally, rhythmically, that it's unpredictable. It's not like a pop song where you're like, okay, you know, verse, verse, chorus, verse, done. You know, it doesn't have that. Everyone approaches jazz standards differently, in some way differently. And I think that that keeps the music fresh. But, you know, they're so simple, those lyrics, you know, like My Funny Valentine. You make me smile with my heart, you know, like it's those type of lyrics and melodies, and they're real. They're a lot more real than, you know, pop music. A lot of pop music. There's some great pop music. I mean, I'm not a Bieber fan, but like his writing is really strong now. And I heard Taylor Swift's Folklore album. It's
Oh.
gorgeous. My God, it's a gorgeous album. Like, just a great. I really hope she wins a Grammy for it. It was a gorgeous album. But you know, a lot of pop music isn't that, and that's great. I love pop music. I love pop music. But I think the reason why jazz endures is because it's more foundational. You know, it's at the root of everything. Um, yeah, I think that's probably why it endures and why it will endure. I think.
Fair enough. No, I'm always curious because we live in an era where there's such an oversaturation of music, but it's such a monopolized
Oh, for
scene at the
sure.
same time. I mean, I for one am no musician. I won't even pretend to be, but what's stopping me from finding a local studio, recording something and putting it out there? But at the same time, we have such media conglomerates that control everything. But at the same time, we have social media where anyone can promote themselves. And
Yeah.
I'm always curious because I work with a lot of up and coming newer artists, and their world is so different because there's always been social media, there's always been Spotify
Yeah.
links, etc. And to hear how the music scene has grown and evolved and changed and from someone else's perspective is just always absolutely fascinating to me. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh no, those companies still control. You know, I there's a very negligible chance that my music would be played on a major commercial radio station because I don't have, you know, they can't pick up a phone and say I have a new song. You know, these record companies pick up a phone and say I have a song that is going to be huge from an artist that is already huge, and it will get you a lot of advertising. And that's how it works. And the thing is, I love commercial radio, and I don't begrudge them that. I don't at all. But that is how it functions. I think it always has, but much more hardcore now because now we don't have any artistic development. You have to be a YouTube star, or you have to be, um, or you have to get real lucky and catch somebody's eye, and they'll develop you as an artist. It's really rare, really, really, really rare. So it's hard for artists to break in. I don't care about breaking in. I'm thrilled if I hear my album on CBC, and if I'm on, you know, Global TV Regina or your show or CBC Radio or whatever. I'm thrilled because I don't have expectations, and it never even occurred to me that I would ever access that kind of market because I'm not in that market. I think it's really hardcore, and yeah, I don't envy people that are trying to break into it. No, I for sure don't.
For sure, for sure. So last thing, as someone who's done 1.5 million interviews over the years, what's one thing that you would like to tell people that you never really get to talk about? It can be words of advice,
Oh,
it can just be a weird fun fact about yourself.
do you know what I would love to say is, you know, you were saying yourself as a single gay man adopting a child. What I would love to say is that there are many, many, many children who are in cramped foster homes, that, you know, because there are so few foster homes, um, that don't have a forever family, or they don't even have a stable foster home family because it's so large. And there are many children that need to be adopted. I would encourage anyone who is wanting a child and can't have a child, or maybe they're, maybe they've exhausted the normal routes of having a child, or maybe they're in a situation that it's not really feasible to biologically conceive a child. One of the things that became very clear to me while I was fostering my own son, because my son came from a foster home that had 15 children in it, and it was a wonderful place. I mean, it was big. They took really good care of them. They were mostly infants, so it was under control. And the wonderful people running it, the man and wife, husband and wife running it. But it was 15 kids. And, I remember Rena, the foster mom, said to me, "I'm so happy that Nikki has found a home." And, it's a desperate need, because the primary goal for these kids isn't about politics, or putting them with a family of the same ethnic background or the same social background. It is literally making it so the children have a home, that they go home, that they're at home every day, they come home from school every day, that they belong there. And I would encourage anyone to look into fostering and adoption of children maybe aren't newborns, because there's a desperate need for it. And I think a lot of us assume that we wouldn't be eligible to do that. And there are huge support networks within the bureaucracies that are there to help sort of families get by. And that would be something I would encourage.
Nice. And then just, yeah, speaking of like fostering and community, obviously with COVID still ongoing, let's be honest, a lot of smaller businesses, a lot of queer spaces have really, really been hurting in this time. I was just wondering if there's any places you'd like to give a shout out to, whether they're mom and pop little restaurants where you're living, or spaces in Toronto.
You know what? Glad Day Books in Toronto, God love them. They moved to a main floor location after being on the second floor for decades on Yonge Street. They moved to Church Street in the village, and they are on the main street. They're on the main drag. They're at ground level, like sidewalk level, and they have been just hustling their butts off. They've got books outside. You can order them. They have queer artists. They're just amazing, and they're run by a collective. And it's a slick place. It's so nice to go into. It's just beautiful and elegant and cool. And the others is Dudley Hardware, which is where I got my masks. I love that place. I've been going there for 21 years, since the year 2000. And boy, it's a neighborhood standby. And he has been, the owner has been just so proactive in our community and keeping it safe, because during the first several months of the pandemic, we had a lot of folks living in parks and in tents, and there was a lot of violence happening against them, as well as other people in our neighborhood. He was really right on board with saying, look, we have to protect the people that live here and the businesses that are here. We also have to protect the vulnerable people that are in the tents that are being victimized by the very few that are causing trouble. And so I admire him greatly. Yeah, I think that's a great organization, Dudley's.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's time. I know.
Thank you so much.
Oh gosh, I honestly could speak to you for 3 more hours, but
I loved it. It was lovely getting to know you too. Much love. Thank you again.
oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.